My brother got my fiancée pregnant just months before our wedding. Now, my family expects me to forgive them and pretend everything is fine. Instead, I told them all to get lost and moved away. This is going to be a long story. And yes, it's as insane as it sounds. I don't care if anyone believes it honestly. Even now, it feels absurd to me, like I'm living someone else's nightmare. But I need to vent, to get it all out. So here goes. I'm 32 years old, and until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years, let's call her Sarah. My younger brother, Mike, is 29. To anyone on the outside looking in, we were a pretty typical family. But to truly understand why this betrayal has hit me so hard, I need to give you some background on how we got here. It wasn't just a one-time affair. This betrayal feels like it's been building for years. Growing up, Mike was always the golden child in our family. He could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, while I was perpetually in the wrong even when I wasn't. It wasn't normal sibling rivalry or subtle favoritism. It was blatant. It was toxic. If something went wrong in the house, I was blamed every single time. Mike would break something, and somehow it was my fault. He'd start a fight, and I'd get punished. Even when we both got straight A's in school, he'd be rewarded with some new video game console, while I got a half-hearted, "Good job, keep it up." My parents, Tom and Linda, always had an excuse for their actions. "Mike's younger, he needs more attention," they'd say. "You're older, you should know better. Mike's sensitive. We have to be careful with him." It didn't matter what I did or how well I performed. The result was the same. I was ignored or reprimanded, while Mike was coddled and praised. It was relentless, and it chipped away at me year after year. I began to feel like a ghost in my own home. Like, no matter what I did, I was always second best, always inadequate. As we grew older, the favoritism only became more obvious. When I got accepted into a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely acknowledged it. I don't think they even realized what a big deal it was to me. Meanwhile, when Mike decided to attend community college, they threw him a lavish celebration. They even bought him a car to help with his commute, while I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for years without so much as a mention. That's when I knew I had to get out. I moved away as soon as I could, eager to escape the toxic environment of our household. I supported myself through college by working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Mike, on the other hand, dropped out after 1 semester. He said college wasn't for him, and our parents naturally backed him up. "Good for you, Mike," they said. "You're not the type to conform to societal expectations." They even funded his string of failed business ventures in the years that followed, as if he were some sort of entrepreneurial genius. Each time, his businesses crashed and burned, and yet they still believed in him, still gave him more money, more chances. Meanwhile, I struggled to carve out a stable career for myself, working hard and climbing the ladder slowly but steadily. Even though I distanced myself physically, it seemed like I could never fully escape the grip of my family. Holidays were the worst. Every visit back home felt like I was walking into a minefield. The subtle digs at my life choices, the constant comparisons to Mike. "Oh, you're still in that entry-level position?" my mother would ask with that thin smile. "Well, Mike's thinking of starting another business. He's always been so ambitious." Never mind the fact that Mike had drained their retirement funds on failed projects, while I had been building a stable career. Despite all of this, I tried to maintain a relationship with Mike. He was still my brother after all. But our relationship was always one-sided. I'd reach out, try to connect, and he'd either ignore me or twist the conversation into some kind of competition. If I mentioned I got a promotion, suddenly he'd have a big opportunity on the horizon. If I started seeing someone, he'd immediately be in a serious relationship. It was exhausting. That's how I met Sarah, by the way, through Mike. She was a friend of one of his short-lived girlfriends, and we hit it off instantly. Sarah was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Smart, funny, kind, and absolutely beautiful. When we started dating, it was the first time I felt truly happy in years. Like I'd finally found someone who saw me for who I was, not through the lens of my family's messed up dynamics. Of course, my parents weren't thrilled about it. "Are you sure she's not out of your league?" My mother would joke, only half serious. Mike, on the other hand, was suddenly very interested in my life. He kept asking about Sarah, always wanting to know how things were going between us. At the time, I thought he was just being a supportive brother. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs, the way he'd smile when I talked about her, the way he always found excuses to bring her up. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating, and life felt good. We both had steady jobs, we traveled, we talked about the future. For the first time, I felt like I could actually have the life I'd always wanted: a solid career, a loving partner, maybe even kids someday. 2 years ago, on our 4th anniversary, I proposed to her. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a quiet dinner at home and a heartfelt speech about how much she meant to me. When she said yes, I felt like everything was finally falling into place. We decided on a long engagement, taking our time to plan the wedding. We weren't in any rush. We had our whole lives ahead of us, or so I thought. When we told my family about the engagement, their reactions were mixed, to say the least. My mother gave one of her trademark insincere smiles and said, "Oh, how nice," in that tone that made it clear she thought it was anything but. My father barely looked up from his TV to grunt, "Good luck with that." And Mike had the strangest reaction. He congratulated us, but there was something off about the way he smiled, like he knew something I didn't. I brushed it off at the time, telling myself I was just being paranoid. The next year was a whirlwind of wedding planning and long work hours. Sarah and I were both working overtime to save for the wedding and a down payment on a house. We weren't seeing each other as much, but I figured it was just a phase. Every couple goes through rough patches, right? Besides, we were both under a lot of stress, at least. That's what I kept telling myself. But then Sarah started acting strange. She became distant, spending more time out with her friends and coming home late, smelling like wine and cologne. I noticed she was constantly on her phone, smiling at texts from people she dismissed as just work friends. There was a part of me that felt uneasy, but I brushed it aside. I trusted her. I had no reason not to. The idea that she might be cheating on me, let alone with my own brother, never crossed my mind. Then, 4 months ago, everything changed. Sarah became moody, irritable, and nauseous all the time. She started avoiding me more, and I could tell something was wrong. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was pregnant. We hadn't been trying, but we'd talked about having kids in the future, and I started to get excited at the idea. I began making plans in my head, picking out nursery colors, thinking of baby names. I was ready to step up and be there for her. But then, one night, Sarah sat me down, tears in her eyes, and dropped a bombshell that shattered everything. She was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. The last few months have been an endless storm of emotions, heartbreak, and betrayal. Just when I think I've hit rock bottom, life finds a way to pull the floor out from beneath me. After Sarah's affair with my brother Mike came to light, I cut ties with everyone. I've been trying to pick up the pieces of my shattered life, but it's hard when the people who should be your support system are the ones holding the hammer that broke you in the first place. I thought moving out of the city, cutting ties with my family and focusing on work would give me the space I needed to heal. But even that hasn't been enough. No matter how much I try to put it behind me, they always find a way to drag me back into the chaos. My parents, Mike, even Sarah, they're all circling like vultures, waiting for me to crack. But I won't. I can't. Amy, my cousin, called me the other day. She's been one of the few family members who hasn't taken sides or tried to guilt me into forgiving Mike and Sarah. She's taken a lot of heat from the family for standing by me, but she's staying firm. During our conversation, she filled me in on what's been going on behind the scenes. Apparently, my parents have been telling everyone that I'm going through a mental breakdown. They've spun this whole narrative that Sarah and I had already broken up before she got involved with Mike, and that I'm just bitter and can't let go. They're painting me as some kind of deranged, jealous ex who can't accept that his fiancée moved on. According to Amy, most of the family is skeptical, but there are always a few who are willing to believe the worst. It makes my blood boil to know they're spreading these lies while I'm just trying to recover. My parents, who I've given everything to, have chosen to side with the very person who betrayed me in the worst way possible. I've always known they favored Mike, but this feels like a new low, even for them. Things at work haven't been much better. Ever since the incident with my mother in the lobby and the argument with Mike that went viral on social media, I can feel the shift in the air around me. My coworkers, people I've spent years building rapport with, now act like I'm some kind of ticking time bomb. They glance at me nervously, keep their conversations brief, and there's this constant undercurrent of gossip that follows me wherever I go. Earlier this week, my manager called me into his office. He started by telling me that he valued me as an employee, that he understood I was going through a tough time. But then came the real reason for the meeting. He suggested I take a leave of absence. A personal sabbatical, as he put it, paid of course. He framed it as a gesture of support, but we both knew what it really was. I'm causing a distraction. My personal life has bled into my work, and they need me out of the picture until the scandal dies down. I wanted to argue, to tell him that work is the only thing keeping me sane right now. But I could see it in his eyes. The decision had already been made. So I nodded, thanked him for his understanding, and started packing up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard two of my coworkers whispering in the break room. They didn't realize I was nearby, or maybe they didn't care. They were talking about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant, laughing about the whole thing like it was some kind of soap opera. I slammed my office door harder than necessary as I walked out, taking a small amount of satisfaction in watching them jump. It's hard to admit, but all of this is getting to me. It's not just the betrayal. It's the isolation, the way people look at me now, like I'm some kind of sideshow freak. The worst part is, I don't know how to stop it. Every step I take feels like another trap, another reminder that my life is unraveling faster than I can keep up. Amidst all this chaos, I received a message from an unexpected source, Sarah's younger sister, Emma. She reached out to me on social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her support. At first, I didn't know what to think. What if this was a trap? What if Sarah had put her up to this to get more information out of me? But the more I talked to Emma, the more I realized she was just as disgusted by Sarah's behavior as I was. Emma's been keeping me updated on what's been going on in Sarah and Mike's lives. Apparently, they've moved in together, playing house as if they hadn't just destroyed countless lives to be with each other. According to Emma, Sarah's been trying to paint herself as the victim, crying to anyone who will listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone and how she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. It makes me sick to my stomach. Still, I appreciate Emma keeping me in the loop. It gives me a sense of control, even if the information she shares only serves to reopen old wounds. Knowing what they're up to helps me brace myself for the next wave of pain, the next social media post, the next piece of gossip that trickles back to me. Social media has been a nightmare. I've always been a private person, but ever since this whole fiasco started, I've been thrust into an unwanted spotlight. Someone, probably one of Mike's friends, posted about the argument we had at the gym on a local Facebook page. They didn't mention our names, but they gave enough details that anyone who knew us could easily figure it out. The comment section became a battlefield. Some people defended me, saying Mike got what he deserved. Others called me unstable, saying I needed to be locked up. I made the mistake of reading the comments after having a few too many beers one night. Big mistake. By the time I threw my phone across the room, I'd already cracked the screen and spiraled deeper into the anger I'd been trying so hard to suppress. Since then, I've deleted most of my social media accounts. I can't handle the constant barrage of notifications, the messages from people I haven't spoken to in years, suddenly pretending to care about my life because they want the inside scoop on the drama. Everyone wants to know what happened. Everyone wants the juicy details. But no one actually cares about me, only the story. After everything that's happened, I've come to a difficult conclusion. I can't stay in this city any longer. There are too many memories here, too many chances to run into Sarah, Mike, or my parents. Every corner of this place reminds me of what I've lost, of the life I thought I was building with Sarah. It's suffocating. I've started looking into internal transfers at work, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not exactly my dream city. I've never been a fan of the constant rain, but at this point, I'd move to the moon if it meant escaping the endless reminders of my ruined life. A new city, a new apartment, a new life where no one knows me as the guy whose brother got his fiancée pregnant. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the thought of a fresh start is becoming more and more appealing by the day. Since the restraining order against Mike was granted, my parents have been unusually quiet. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find some new way to force their way back into my life. I know it's only a matter of time. They've always been persistent, especially when it comes to Mike. Meanwhile, Sarah's been making sure everyone knows about her pregnancy. Emma tells me she's been posting constant updates on social media, ultrasound pictures, baby bump photos, and captions about how blessed she and Mike are to be starting a family. Every new post feels like a fresh stab to the heart, reopening the wounds just when I start to think I might be healing. It's hard to describe the mix of emotions I feel. Anger, pain, resentment, but also this deep, gnawing sense of loss. I spent years imagining the life I was going to build with Sarah, the house, the kids, the future we were supposed to have together. Now, she's living that life with my brother, and I'm left with nothing but memories of what could have been. 2 weeks ago, I thought things couldn't get worse. I was wrong. After another frustrating meeting with my lawyer regarding Mike's assault charges, I came home to find a letter in my mailbox. It was from Sarah. I almost threw it out without opening it, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside was an ultrasound photo and a handwritten note. She said that she and Mike were thrilled about the baby and hoped I could find it in my heart to be happy for them. She even had the audacity to suggest that their child would love to have me as its uncle. I saw red. Before I knew it, I had unblocked Sarah's number and dialed her. When she picked up, I let loose. I told her exactly how I felt about her, Mike, and their so-called blessed little family. I told her she was delusional if she thought I would ever want anything to do with that child. I told her that she, Mike, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my finest moment, but it felt good to finally say all the things I'd been bottling up for months. The conversation left me shaking with rage, but it also gave me a sense of clarity. I couldn't stay here anymore. Not in this city. Not with these people. That night, I called my supervisor and told him I was accepting the transfer to Seattle. He was relieved, to be honest. I think he'd been worried that all this drama was going to affect the company's reputation. He promised to expedite the paperwork, and by the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up my life and move across the country. The news of my move spread quickly among my family and social circle. My parents were furious, of course. They showed up at my apartment unannounced, once again breaking the restraining order, begging me not to go. My mother cried, saying I was abandoning the family. My father yelled, calling me selfish and immature. I didn't engage. I called the police, had them removed for violating the restraining order, and went back to packing. As they were being escorted out, my mother shouted that I would regret this, that family was everything, and I was throwing it all away. I didn't look back. As I sit here, surrounded by half-packed boxes and the remnants of a life I'm leaving behind, I realize this is the end of a chapter. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to start fresh. I'm ready to leave the pain, the betrayal, and the heartache behind. Seattle is a new beginning, a place where I can build a life on my own terms, far away from the people who have hurt me, far away from the memories that haunt me. For the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope. This is my final update. Thank you to everyone who has offered advice, support, and kindness throughout this journey. I may never forget what happened, but I'm finally ready to move forward. Seattle, here I come.